Well, hey everyone, my name is Nathan Jones, and if you're new here, welcome. I like to talk about all things movies, specifically Blu-rays, and welcome to Film Journeys with Nathan Jones. This week, we're tackling my own film journey. We're on week 27 now, which is kind of insane. These weeks have passed by uber quickly, but also really slowly, which we're past the halfway point of a whole year of doing this. But yeah, anyway, I've been focusing on my own film journey. I just recently opened back up with film journeys with other people on the channel, so I just recently did one with Mega Mike the Movie Man. I hope you were able to check that out. I just recently posted that one up. And there's another one coming up very, very shortly in between this video right now, and the next film journey that I do for myself. But yeah, I've been currently thinking a lot about this past week. David Lynch just recently had passed away, so I did focus a little bit this week on him and some of the films that I've been watching from his filmography. In fact, I'm going in chronological order, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. I'm also focusing a lot more on the folk horror box set, All the Haunts BRs Volume 2 from Severin. I've been really digging into that box set. I'm over the halfway point now of it, and it's been a total blast. But besides that, I've watched a few other things, and I've also even got a haul to show you here in a second. That's actually the next part of the video, is the haul that I got from Orbit DVD. I actually pre-ordered this back in November, so we'll cover that. And then also, I've been reading a lot more. I'm actually on my 5th book of the year, and I'll cover a little bit about that too. And don't worry, they're movie related for the most part. But before we jump into all of that, I would love to know in the comment section down below what you've been doing for the week. Have you been watching things? Have you been reading? Have you been doing anything active for artistic creativity for yourself? I would love to know in the comment section down below. And also be sure to reach out if you would like to be on the channel for a film journey. This is open to content creators, but also people in the community and in the channel. I would love to have you on, so feel free to message me on Instagram. The link is down in the description. But anyway, let's jump over to the other side of my house where we talk about the things that I picked up and also a couple of books. Now we're over here to the section of the video where we discuss the things that I have been picking up, but also I'm going to talk about some books here in a second. But first, let's talk about the haul from Orbit DVD. This is actually, I would consider, the first major haul of 2025. I'm probably not going to get too many major hauls, mainly because I want to pay off debt, and that is a big focus of mine for 2025. But first of all, I actually ordered this back in November. So that being said, a lot of the release dates just came out, a little bit after the fact. So hence me getting this now in kind of mid to late January. But I have 5 titles to showcase to you. Very excited to talk about them. Some of them are Region B only, which is sad for people who don't have a Region Free player. But that ship is about to sail, unfortunately. I won't get into those details, but anyway, let's talk about the titles that I picked up. First, one that I have been recommended nonstop by so many people in my life. Is actually currently having a 2nd season right now on Apple TV, which I don't have, hence the reason I probably haven't seen it yet. But it is Severance Season 1. It's starring Adam Scott. It's directed by Ben Stiller and also created by Dan Erickson. This is something I've been curious about for some time now. It is a workplace drama that has like this really weird mystery going on in the background. At least that's from what I know, which is not very much. So take that with a grain of salt, right? Season 2, like I said, is happening right now. A lot of people are super ecstatic and stoked about it and loving it. And honestly, I'm finally happy to have this first season right here, so I can finally watch it and jump on board with everybody else in the world talking about Severance. So I'm excited to watch this, and I love Ben Stiller's work. He is honestly a comedian, but also can make some really good dramas as well. I mean, I love Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Tropic Thunder, name a few things, but something like this, I think this might be one of his magnum opuses from a lot of people's perspectives, I think, so far. So anyway, I'm going to watch Severance very, very shortly. Next is a release that I think I have on Region B, but I believe it's region free. You can get it in America. But it is a J-horror film from 1999. It is Tomi. This is actually made from the manga artist who is really huge now, Junji Ito, and I am really curious about this because I have loved J-horror for quite some time, ever since The Ring and The Grudge came over here in the early 2000s in the States. But obviously, over the last few years, I've been really digging into J-horror. Really love Kiyoshi Kurosawa. That's like some of my favorite work, like Cure and Pulse are some of my favorite things. Ringu, and now I have Tomi, right? And this is something that I don't really know much about, but I know this is definitely one of the films that is talked about in the, like, you know, especially in the J-horror circle. So I'm very excited to finally have it, and finally have it on Blu-rays. And it has quite a bit of different interviews right here from Scream Queens who are involved in the film. So I'm very excited about this one, and yeah, gonna check this one out soon. Next is a English film that is one that I don't know too much about, but I did watch the trailer for this back when this got announced back, I think, late November is when this announcement was probably put out. I can't remember. Time's an illusion, right? But I watched the trailer and I really, really loved it, and it looked really interesting. But it is the movie Creep, and this is about the London Underground and missing a train. And that's all I'll say. I'm going to recommend people check out the trailer for this, but this looks terrifying, right? And also just, you can just tell right here. But Ever Missed the Last Train is the back here. Really cool umbrella release here. This is a region B release, I will say. It is rated R, or 18 plus, if you will. So keep in mind of that. But the trailer is really, really good, and this looks like a really fun, low budget film that I am just super curious about. So yeah, Creep looks like a fun time. Looks like a horrifying time too. Never Miss the Train and Mind the Gap. Speaking of English films, this next one is a legendary one from a lot of perspectives, from a lot of people that I know who are super stoked about this coming out. And it is a folk horror film mixed with like science fiction. There's like some crossover here, but it is The Stone Tape. And I am so curious about this. As many people know who've been watching the channel, I've been in a big folk horror mood, and we'll talk more about folk horror later. But something like this, I've heard really good things. So this is from 101 Films. This came out in 1972. I think it was a precursor to a lot of things, but this right here is a big beast of a bundle. Let's see what's inside, because we have a couple of things here. One, we have this booklet, which I believe is kind of just like the script of like shooting and you know, setting it all up. So it's like the whole script is right here. We also have a booklet that probably has essays in it and some pictures from the people who are involved in here. This television play that became such an iconic thing for the British people, and then also just what would come out after the fact and influence so much. Then there's some postcards, which I will showcase, so I'll just rip that off. There is the Stone Tapes. Just some really cool artwork right here. Some terrifying artwork. That one looks incredible. But so there's those, and then there's the film from 101 Films right here, which I don't have very many 101 films, but I have enjoyed what I've seen. I definitely saw some when I was over in England and almost picked up a few. I actually got Baghead from the Duplass brothers earlier this last year, I guess, when I was over there. But I'm super excited to check this out. It is made by Nigel Neal, and this is just a 1972 Christmas Day classic. So I'm really excited to finally check out the Stone Tape. And yeah, I have a lot of friends who keep talking about it and are curious to hear my thoughts, I'm sure, but I'm excited to watch it. And the last film that I picked up, and I am late to the party, but mainly because, like I said, I allocated this entire order into one thing, and so I should have got this back when it came out. But I did order it, so now here we are, and I'm super excited to eventually carve out 4 hours of my time to watch it. But it is one of the greatest films of all time, and one of my first Criterion films I ever owned. But this is from the BFI, and it is the BFI version of Seven Samurai. And I cannot wait to watch this movie. This is a perfect film. This is one of the best Japanese films of all time. You know, it deservingly so. I mean, obviously a lot of people talk about this, and there's probably some people who think it's overhyped, but you're wrong. But this movie is just a perfect film. So excited to finally have this. Like, I haven't even looked in here. In fact, I have a poster which I'm definitely putting up on my wall. Very curious about this. Let's see what it looks like. Oh man, there's two sides, and I want to put both of them up. Oh no. Oh no, what happened? Did I just rip this? Holy crap, I ripped it in the middle of the frickin' video. Anyway, there's Seven Samurai right there. There's Toshiro Mifune. And then, yeah, if you can see, I ripped it. But there is the original poster art, which I probably will put this one up. But, man, I just ripped this thing on camera, of all things. Man, my luck. Anyway, besides that, there is the 4K restoration, of course. There is the BFI booklet right here with essays and just probably talking about the transfer and everything like that. And then we have the 4K itself. Holy moly. Let's look at the special features. 4K restoration, of course. Audio commentary by Adrian Martin. We have Akira Kurosawa. It's a wonderful. It is wonderful to create Seven Samurai from 2002. There's definitely a lot of archival stuff from the '99. There's even a couple of things. There's like a 2024 restoration trailer that the BFI did. They did that very similarly to the Wicker Man when they did that, or at least Studio Canal did. Sorry, I'm crossing my brain here, but anyway. Very, very excited to watch this film on 4K. I know there's a Criterion edition out as well. I probably will upgrade that as well eventually, back maybe in July when the next sale happens. But man, I'm so happy to finally own this, and I'm so sad that I ripped this. Such a silly, silly goose that I am. But yeah, now let's talk about some books. Books that are related to movies, so don't worry. So currently, I haven't really talked much about this, but I did just recently read some Twin Peaks books, which I did talk about last week, but I've actually been reading quite a bit more. In fact, I've read 2 more books since that time, which I'll showcase both. One is a book that is outside of movies, right, and then a nonfiction book, and then the other one is a biography on a movie. And the first one is The Devil's Atlas. The second one is As You Wish by Carrie Ells, which we'll talk about this one in a second, but I did read The Devil's Atlas right here, which is a book by Edward Brooke Hitching, and this is a very, very marvelous looking book, but it is talking about heavens, hells, purgatory, all that fun stuff that a lot of people probably can or cannot relate to, but this kind of stuff is really interesting. I've always loved mythology, and this talks a lot about the various mythos in the world involving those various things throughout time and how it's evolved. And so it kind of showcases that with a bunch of stunning artwork. You have a lot of really incredible pieces here, like just look at that, like the opening to that hardcover. Like that right there is just amazing. I think this is this is Hades showing right here. There is Chiron, the river ferryman, between the Elysian fields and Cerberus, and looking at all that. But anyway, there's various things in here, just kind of showcasing the various cultures, that heaven and hell and purgatory would have. And it's really, really fascinating to kind of look into this kind of stuff. And yeah, honestly, it's a marvelous piece of work. And I love that they put this all together. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's definitely not movie related at all, but I am into artwork and definitely into stuff like this, because these stories, even if they transcend time, right, and cultures. So very curious book right here. I definitely recommend it. So check out The Devil's Atlas. Now the next thing I want to talk about is As You Wish, the Making of the Princess Bride, the inconceivable tales from the making of the Princess Bride, written by Carrie Ells with Joe Layden, forward by Rob Reiner. In fact, there's a lot of various people who are involved in this movie who comment in this book. It's really cool actually how it happens. It's kind of like this. You can kind of see in the kind of grayish text box. You have like Chris Sarandon, Carol Kane, Rob Reiner, William Goldman, Andy Sheenman. So people who are like behind the scenes, who are like producing the film, the executive producers, people who are directing it, the writers, things like that, the actors. But yeah, it just really kind of goes in depth with Carrie Ells' time at making this movie and how like wonderful it was, and like one of the most terrific times he's ever had making a film. In fact, this is probably his most cherished memory, and you can definitely tell the way he writes it. And I also found out various things about him, like him breaking his toe on an ATV, and also Andre the Giant, and his health issues, but also just how sweet he was to everybody he met, even though people either ran away from him or they came and were like just so fascinated by him. And it is really just a heartwarming tale. It's one of the best movies ever made. It's also one of the best books ever written, and this is just a celebration of that time. And I definitely recommend people check this out. If you're a fan of Carrie Ells, who is just one of the most charming people out there, but also if you're a fan of The Princess Bride. So check out this book. And then currently, what I'm reading right now is one that is a big one. It is a big one for a lot of people. it's Jurassic Park. And I'm finally reading this. I have the paperback here. I think I got this at Barnes & Noble either a year ago or a couple years back. Been meaning to read this for a long time, but you know, I'm getting to it, and I love it so far. I'm only a little in here. I'm with Dr. Alan Grant right now, and kind of just figuring out what InGen is and what John Hammond's up to. So I'm going to figure that out. But it's definitely written more like a horror book, and I love that. And yeah, so I'm going to be talking more about books and more movies as we progress throughout the weeks. So anyway, let's jump back over there and talk about some movies that I watched this past week. And we're back here in the movie closet to talk about the movies that I had watched for the past week. And I've been focusing a lot on David Lynch because obviously he had just passed away. I just had been reading the Twin Peaks dossier books, and I've been really invested in that world for some time. And I took a little break just doing other things, and I'm finally back into it, obviously just because of the passing of this amazing director. But I was able to watch a few titles. One is actually the one that I started off with, which is something that I wanted to watch. It's a documentary. It's not directed by David Lynch, but it is about him, and it is about the art life of David Lynch right here. And you can just see the man right there as he just smokes cigarettes, which eventually probably was his downfall, unfortunately. But you can just see the creative master of the obscure and the surreal, and also just like very troubled, and I would say, you know, very difficult person it's probably to be around, because he just was in his own world a lot of the times. And it just showcases his life as a painter, as his life in creating art, and kind of focusing on that. And it has a lot of introspection going on in the background, but it's a really good film, and it's actually one of the cheaper Criterion films out there. This is a movie that I really enjoyed, just kind of showcasing you know, the various aspects that you don't really see too much from David Lynch, because he doesn't like doing interviews, especially when it comes to the making of his movies or explaining it, because just watch the movie, it explains itself, right? Or doesn't explain itself. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, one of the things that I really took from this, and one that I am going to think about a lot here, but what he calls the art life, which is what this thing is titled, is you drink coffee, you smoke cigarettes, and you paint, and that's it. And that is honestly a beautiful, but also like tragically introspective look at his own life. But at the same time, he did what he loved, and that's an amazing thing. And so yeah, this was a great start to my David Lynch kind of looking into the filmography. So that one right there, I'd give it like a solid 4 out of 5. It's a movie that I definitely recommend, maybe a 3.5. This is a movie that I think a lot of people should check out. Maybe watch this after watching a lot of his movies, or at least digging into his stuff, but you know, it's definitely worth checking out nonetheless. But the rewatches that I have here are the first 2 films that David Lynch had directed. Both of them on Criterion. In fact, the rest of this stuff is probably going to be on Criterion because David Lynch has all his movies on them. But let's talk about Eraserhead, which I have seen a few times now. And it's interesting going back to this, obviously, had just watched The Art Life, and then also just, you know, Twin Peaks, and thinking a lot about that world. But this was pretty much the creative juice that started David Lynch, right? What can be said about Eraserhead? There's a lot of weird things going on in the background, but you can definitely see his work. Stuff like Twin Peaks: The Return, you could see like the imprints of what that was coming from this, right? You can definitely see that David Lynch had created all of these very surreal, very obscure, kind of fuzzy things going on, of this almost like beautiful Americana look at life, but then also at the same time just seeing the horrors of like what's actually going on insidiously inside those horrors. It's a strange one, and this is a movie you can't really explain it, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely one of the cult films that is out there. It's a movie that I think I get something new every time I watch it. And this go around, it's definitely more of the creative aspect of Lynch, and just showcasing that in his time making this movie. And so this is a great film for me. Right now, I would say it might be a 3.5 out of 5. It's still something that I kind of struggle with, just depending on my mood. Eventually, it will probably become one of my favorite films. I think, like I said, each subsequent film that I watch of this viewing of this, I check my mind and go to a different space. But this is a very strange one, and one that I definitely recommend. But you definitely have to be a little bit prepared for the strangeness that is Eraserhead. It also has some different shorts on here, which I didn't see yet, which I think I will, but I'm just trying to find the time for. But it has 6 shorts on here that I want to check out, which were made before the making of this film. So obviously a lot of stuff that he probably made in school or like just as a young director and artist. All right, so next we're going to move on to the film that probably got him more critical acclaim, at least for mainstream audiences. Definitely still strange as all get out. It is The Elephant Man. This came out in 1980 and is starring John Hurt, and who as the titular Elephant Man himself. We also have Anthony Hopkins, who plays the doctor who attempts to help him and understand his condition. But this movie is quite an incredible film. Shot in black and white, just like Eraserhead, and came out in a time that I think is really strange. It feels like it's almost of a distant era, because it definitely feels like Todd Browning's Freaks, or at least akin to something like that. Obviously, that's very on the nose to say, but at the same time, it is very. You can see remnants of like stuff like the Eraserhead. You can definitely tell the visual styles of what Lynch would do, even if he seemed a little bit more constrained here, at least more structured and a story. But this is an incredible film that elicits a lot of empathy and understanding of the other, right? Obviously going back to Freaks, but also going back to something like this where John Hurt's character, who is this Elephant Man, is mistreated by society, everybody pretty much that he meets around him, because they just think of him as this freak, and there's constantly, just in his business, I suppose, and constantly trying to question, like, this is uncanny, it's not normal. But at the same time, there's people and souls like Anthony Hopkins' character, various other characters within the film. There's even some royalty that kind of showcase and see the beauty of this soul right here. But like this movie makes you cry. It's a movie that will definitely pull on your heartstrings, but like in a really productive way. Like, it's not something that is like manufactured at all. It definitely feels like it has this soul to it, and I think John Hurt really embodies that within this role. And yeah, it's something that I think I'm gonna have to rewatch and think about. I love the black and white cinematography. Definitely has a lot of parallels to stuff like Eraserhead, at least for the Lynchian style of it. But yeah, I love this movie. This movie is a 4.5 out of 5. I think it eventually will be a 5 out of 5 for me. But right now, since it's my first time watching it, it's definitely something that I'm going to be thinking about nonstop. And this world needs more empathy right now, especially with what's going on in this country right now, where I am incredibly saddened by the lack of empathy or care for its citizens, or the people who are not, who are the other in this case. So this was a very timely film, but at the same time, I'm not happy with what's going on. And who cares if it gets political? It's reality. It's real right now. And this movie, people need to have more empathy in their life, and if this can showcase that, hopefully that's the power of the movies, right? Is to showcase that there's other people on this planet, and they matter too, and they matter more than ourselves, honestly. Anyway, Elephant Man, check this movie out. It's a masterpiece. All right, so now let's jump over to folk horror from that serious topic to All the Haunts Be Ours Volume 2, which I'm currently in the middle of right now. In fact, I had just finished, last week I talked about Disc 7, which is Sunda Belong, but I actually finally watched Susanna, the Queen of Black Magic, which is this Indonesian queen who starred in so many films, hundreds and hundreds of films, and was one of the most recognized people and faces of that Asian market, and is definitely one that is a documentary, which very much like the first documentary that came out in the first set that Kayla Janice put out. This one is, I think, David Gregory's baby, who directed this, Susanna, Queen of Black Magic, and just it really invests its time in the life and history of her and the various craziness that happened behind the scenes, but at the same time, the things that it influenced, and like honestly it was just a really I guess a breath of fresh air for someone like me, but also just like English and the kind of Western audiences to kind of see this amazing icon kind of showcase like this. And so it's a really cool documentary. I definitely recommend people check it out. I'd give it like a 3.5 out of 5. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's also exposure, and like that's the most important thing I think for this particular story, is showcasing one of the most badass women in Indonesian folk horror. And yeah, Susanna, Queen of Black Magic is a good time. Definitely check it out. Moving on from disc 7 is disc 8, which is some Czechoslovakian films right here. And I'm going to butcher the heck out of this name, but it's right here. But he directed both these films, I think, in consecutive years. It is The Beauty and the Beast and The Ninth Heart. And both of these movies were quite a trip, and I love the imagination going on in both of these films. First, let's talk about Beauty and the Beast, right? Obviously, it's a tale as old as time, to quote Disney, but Beauty and the Beast has been adapted quite a bit, and some of my favorite ones are like the French versions, right? The original La Belle et la Bête is like one of my favorite adaptations. But I also love the '90s classic. I grew up with that one. But I love this story to begin with. But I love the way that this film kind of just changes it on its head, but like definitely adapts it in a very murky and like almost ugly kind of background, but also just super gorgeous and like fantasy like ridden. But we also have a beast who is a bird and not like a kind of a hairy beast that we would see with fangs and things like that. We just have a bird, like kind of like a falcon almost like, but like with grease and claws and like definitely like mud and like grit. And there's a lot of stuff you can tell, like I said, with the background, but also the character of the beast himself. But anyway, it's definitely still the same story, who pretty much goes out into the woods, pretty much to save her father, on the beast's threat to spare his life, and in turn to get the woman that he loves and break this curse that he has. So definitely has that elements to it, but at the same time I love the aesthetics of it. It's a movie that I think I want to watch like more and more. It's like a 4 out of 5. It's a movie that I think recommend people check out. I love the aesthetics of it, and I think this is a movie that I think will, a lot of people haven't seen. So it's definitely one I think people should check out. Now, the other film on here is The Ninth Heart, which came out a year later, which is a little bit more of a strange one that has kind of less of an interesting tale, at least in my eyes, but it is about a marionette. And there's also this very fantastical world. This, like I said, the Czech New Wave had a lot of experimentation, and I loved that aspect of it. You can definitely tell there was a lot of things going on in the background that almost feel like it's a children's like movie, like a children's fantasy, but at the same time like very horrifying, right, in that kind of dark, twisted way. And that's what The Ninth Heart is about stabbing and taking some hearts. There's some ritual stuff going on in the background, but this movie is a little choppier than Beauty and the Beast, but at the same time definitely a visual feast for the eyes, and definitely one that I recommend people check out. This movie I would give a 3.5 out of 5. One that I think I need to give a little bit more credit for and a little bit more attention to. But like I said, I just love the characters in here. There's very interesting backdrops, and I love kind of the creation of pretty much the Czech New Wave in general, putting this all together. And great releases, great special features as well. I didn't mention that, but Uncanny Valley of the Dolls, the history of luminality of dolls and puppets and mannequins, and then also talking about the curious case of the director with the Savantmagers, which is a film programmer who put this together, talking about the history of this time period and also the creation of these movies. I love this stuff. And then there's some archival interviews with actors who are involved in Beauty and the Beast, and a short film, which I also enjoyed, but didn't pay too much attention attention to, so I will say I can't say much on that. But this disc is really fantastical and the best way possible. So yeah, check out both Beauty and the Beast and The Ninth Heart. I had a really good time. And the last film I want to talk about is Steven Soderbergh's new horror film, Presence, that just came out. In fact, I watched this last night, and I watched it in the theater at my Alamo Drafthouse, and I had quite a good time with it. And this is a movie I was really hyped to see because I love Steven Soderbergh. I love his kind of experimental stuff, with especially when it comes to cinematography and camera work. He really does put a lot of effort into it, and he puts a lot of effort into like all the things that he makes, and I love kind of the creative aspect of him in general, because he makes so many different films, from like Ocean's 11, Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, Magic Mike, and now stuff like this, right, where there's more experimentation going on with pretty much almost like a found footage film mixed with a ghost story. And I'm talking about the Casey Affleck, Rooney Mara film, A Ghost Story, because it is from the perspective of the entity itself, right? The entity that is haunting this house, and the camera is that entity. And so, like I said, it feels a lot like a ghost story, at least aesthetically, but then it also feels like a found footage film, almost like Paranormal Activity in a way, because of, you know, the entity pretty much just hovering and being there during a lot of the the times that this family is just living in this home, and a lot of the troubles that they go through. But there's a deeper story here, and the deeper story really elicits the family struggle as it kind of unravels. And we have a young daughter who is going through quite a bit because of some deaths of her friends, and this kind of culminates into the presence being, you know, there doing something. I won't give her too much away because I want people to check it out. There are definitely a little bit of misses here as well. I will say that the film has some pacing issues, or at least there's some moments where I'm like, is this like important to the story? And I have to think about it a little bit more. But there are definitely some things going on in the background, just kind of laissez-faire about it. Like I don't know if they're necessarily for the film, so there's something a little off about it. But like I said, I love the creation process that, you know, that Soderbergh puts here, but I also love the story like has an underlying really human connection to it that I think people will hopefully love as they watch this movie. I'd give this movie a 3.5 out of 5. It's one that I definitely recommend people check out. Be patient with it. It's definitely paced a little slow, but it is a quick movie. It's not very long. I think it's less than 90 minutes, so definitely worth checking out. So yeah, go check out Presence if you get the chance to watch it in theaters, or wait till it comes out on streaming, or to buy on Blu-ray. But that being said, I hope you enjoyed my film journey for this past week. Been reading a lot, been collecting some movies. Just really in general, I've been focusing a lot on myself, and with the world how it is right now, there's a lot of hard things going on, and a lot of difficult things happening. And so to everyone who's watching here, you're loved, you're cared for. I hope you can take care of yourself and stay safe. Just be strong for others and for yourself. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you next time. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you around. I'm not jonesing around.